Hello and welcome to Pitt Street Research. My name is Stuart Roberts and I'm one of the co-founders of our firm. And joining me from Sydney on the afternoon of Tuesday, the 25th of February 2025 is Mr. John Kelly, who's the founder and CEO of Atomo Diagnostics, ASX AT1. John, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Stuart. How are you doing?
I'm feeling great. And you must be feeling pretty good now because in a matter of just 3 or 4 years post-IPO, you've gone from creating a diagnostic that was good for HIV is now good for a range of disease conditions that are meaningful to the relevant markets and edging your way towards profitability. So quite a journey for Atomo, and you've got more successes than failures on your balance sheet right now.
Yeah, it's been a busy 4 years, obviously coming out of the back of COVID and seeing the market restructure itself, the diagnostic market. So there's certainly plenty of opportunities. And I think the emergence of consumer retail-focused healthcare is certainly one of the big changes that the pandemic has put into the market.
Right. You and your colleagues started at Atomo with a big dream, that it was possible to create a patient-friendly diagnostic, bedside diagnostic, as it were, that any patient could use in the comfort of their own homes with a minimum of steps that could cause errors. How hard was it to realize that dream?
The engineering to deliver the solutions been hard to put together, to do it elegantly, to do it at a level of cost that makes it applicable in global applications has been a challenge. And obviously, doing it in a way that gives us novelty and protectable IP has again, been challenging. There's a lot of companies have tried to deliver improved usability into consumer health. But I think what we've done really well is take the principles that, I learned at ResMed and other healthcare companies outside of diagnostics and apply some of that best practice into the diagnostics market, which is still, very much driven on the R&D side by scientists. And a lot of the things that make consumer products successful, human factors, ergonomics, aesthetics, ease of use, a lot of that wasn't really part of the R&D thinking in some of the big diagnostics companies. So we came at it from a slightly different and more consumer focused angle. And that's given us, I think, a slightly different approach to some of the products that we've taken to market. And that's, I think, where a lot of the success has been, doing things differently.
Right. And the fruits of it at the end is something I've been waiting for decades to see. Let's say I want to test, am I HIV positive or not? It used to be I'd had to go to a specialist clinic and wait a while till the diagnosis came back. Now I can test in the comfort of my own home with a very easy to use diagnostic, and I can pick up the device at my local pharmacy. That's a big breakthrough in the field of managing that particular healthcare condition.
Yeah, I mean, the technology to do the rapid test has been there for 25 years. I think what hasn't been there is a solution that makes that easy and reliable for anyone to do. So we haven't invented new science. We've taken lateral flow technology that's pretty widely commercialized. But what we've done, I think, that's unique is we've said, look, you can't just put a chemistry set kit in the hands of an untrained user. They're not going to know how to do it reliably. And that's what some companies had tried to do before we came along. And that's why I think a lot of regulatory approvals are very difficult to get, because the reliability, the inherent usability just wasn't there. So we've taken that sort of proven science, but redeployed a much more integrated and user-friendly solution to doing the test, which now means the errors are much less and the reliability is much better. So yeah, we've opened up a market for home testing. Before, I think the regulators and clinicians were really ready for it, initially pre-COVID, but I think post-COVID, there's a much better acceptance now of the ability for people to test at home for common infectious disease and other conditions.
Absolutely.
That openness to approving and funding at home testing through public health is new and exciting.
Yeah, it's hard to believe in retrospect, but yeah, at home testing wasn't really a thing, except maybe for pregnancy prior to COVID, and obviously once COVID came along, we were knocking each other out to get hold of the rat test, as it were, at the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was told by various clinicians and regulators that, people could never test at home with blood, that urine worked because pregnancy tests were out there in the market, but blood was too complicated and too fiddly and too messy, and it could never be done. And it could never be done because nobody actually sat down and really made an effort to do it properly. And I think we were the first company in the world to really deliver a genuinely user-centric at-home blood test solution. And we've proven with HIV and other conditions that we can deliver lab levels of reliability at home quickly. And I think that's a game changer.
Right. And what's interesting is every test that Atomo has subsequently developed, there's qualities about it that make it world leading. I think, for instance, of the pregnancy test that you have developed, it's got better sensitivity than the traditional urine-based test, for example.
Well, it's got earlier sensitivity, rather than better. So we've developed in partnership with NG Biotech in France a blood-based rapid pregnancy test, and it sits on our platform. And again, it's very simple and easy to use. The main difference between that and a standard urine rapid test is that the biomarker for pregnancy, HCG, builds up quicker in blood than it does in urine. So essentially, urine, although it's accurate, does not deliver traceable levels of HCG as quickly and as early as blood does. Right. So blood's a better suited early detector biomarker. Also, one of the big problems with urine is that after first flow in the morning, the levels of HCG in urine drop off quite materially, which is why you're recommended to use a urine test first thing in the morning rather than in the evening. Whereas with blood, the level of HCG stays consistent through the day. Right. So it's better in that early phase, and it's more reliable at any time of day. And we did some market research for about 1 in 5 women. That early reliability in the first phase of pregnancy is super important, especially women who are pregnant for the first time and women over the age of 35. So they're the two markets the two groups that really do value and will pay a premium for that reliability, that early knowledge. And NG Biotech have launched successfully in France, Spain, Portugal, and Brazil. So we know that product, when marketed properly, does have users, does have customers.
Right. What I'm most impressed with is the syphilis diagnostic you're working on. We've all known for years that syphilis is an infectious disease that is making a sneaky comeback, thanks to it not being watched out for. And there are also deficiencies with the current testing regimen, which with your new test we're overcoming.
Yeah, well, we're excited about that. We got a Australian government grant to commercialize, to finish the development of that test. We're doing that in partnership with the assay was developed by the Burnet Institute in Melbourne, who are, renowned global leaders in infectious disease development and diagnostics. The limitation with current rapid syphilis tests are that they're antibody tests. So they detect antibodies to syphilis. So if you've had syphilis for the first time, those standard tests work. They detect antibodies to syphilis. The problem is that if you've had syphilis previously and you've been treated for it and cured, and then you get syphilis again, those tests are not reliable because they will be reactive to the prior infection, whether you've got syphilis this time or not. So essentially, for people who've had it before, those rapid tests are useless. Right. And in high-risk cohorts where people might be at risk of syphilis, it's not uncommon to have multiple infections over a lifetime. So that's quite a big and important cohort. The test that we're developing is much more specific for active syphilis. So if you've had prior syphilis, on our test, you will come up negative because it's not active. But in a standard test, you will come up positive and go forward for further confirmatory testing that will show you don't actually have syphilis. So that ability to be really specific for active syphilis allows for a test and treat in a single visit. And also it allows for testing in the field without the need for confirmatory lab testing, 2 weeks later, which obviously is not ideal.
So what we've achieved with Atomo, the world's easiest to use point of care testing platform, or a series of platforms depending on the condition that we're diagnosing for. Diagnostics that are sufficiently differentiated to make them important breakthroughs in some cases in management of disease. And importantly, we're now making that platform available to other parties to develop their diagnostics on that. How important is that development?
the scale up through the market outside of our own products is fundamental to the business, and the reason for that is we've proven we can deliver with our platforms much better levels of usability and reliability. We've proven we can deliver self-test approvals in key markets. So our HIV self-test is the only self-test that the Australian TGA has approved because of the usability and performance that we deliver. And that allows us to offer other companies essentially a usability upgrade on our platforms. So we've started to supply other companies with our assembled devices for their own tests. And that reflects the fact that, as a small company, there's a limit to how many new tests we can realistically deliver to market each period. If you're funding the clinical and regulatory and go to market, there's a significant capital and resource requirement. So rather than just bringing out one product every now and again, what we're looking to do is prioritize our own portfolio. And syphilis makes a lot of sense because it sits very close to HIV in terms of the distributors and users that we're well networked into in both the public health and pharmacy space. But outside of those applications, there's a whole range. There's probably 20, 30 different areas where rapid blood testing is clinically relevant. And in those channels, we're very open to finding partners and supplying our devices and allowing other companies to upgrade and deliver a better test for their customers. And in the past, we've had struggles, particularly in the US market, with the fact that the platform didn't have an approval. Nobody wanted to be the guinea pig on a new platform that worked well, but didn't have that regulatory pathway that we could point to. And we have a partner, Lumos, that has successfully taken their test to market and secured a 510K. The test is called Febridex.
Lumos, that's also publicly traded on ASX, LDX, I think is the code.
Yes, it is. And they've been a long-time partner. They did their development work for Febridex on our platform. Our usability and dossier helped support their approval, and we supply them exclusively for that product. That's a 510K in place, and they're currently funded to go through and do their CLIA waiver studies, which would mean that the test could be used in healthcare facilities in the US that don't have lab accreditation. So that's a much bigger channel of areas and facilities that can use the product. And that also de-risks for other customers now that pathway to the US market, because we can point to those approvals and the FDA are now familiar with the device and how it delivers that usability. So I think that's allowing us now moving forward to really scale up that OEM supply business, because we've got platform approval in Europe. Now we've got it in the US, and that really de-risks it for anyone that wants to use our platform and take it forward to market. They've got a pathway they can rely on.
Right. COVID, in my opinion, was both a blessing and a curse for Atomo. A blessing because you got to sell a bit more product than before. A curse in the sense that when it was over, I think investors decided, well, the revenue stream's not exactly what it used to be for COVID. So that the stock's down a fair bit. Looking back, what was important about COVID for you?
We developed the world's best blood test device, and COVID started off with some antibody testing on blood. And we made sales to NG Biotech and also Access Bio in the US. And we did deliver some revenue growth through that channel. But once the detection of COVID switched from antibody to antigen, it switched to a swab-based platform, which is not where our technology lies. So we did see a lot of our existing customer base and our pipeline of R&D overseas stop essentially overnight, because every company in the world was doing COVID and COVID only. So a lot of our pipeline of long-term strategic opportunities stopped. Some have come back post-COVID, some haven't. So we did see a bit of a hiatus in that adoption of our technology in the market. Lumos, paused their Febridex rollout. NG paused their pregnancy test. Everybody focused on COVID. So it was disruptive to our business in that respect. But I think what's happened now post-COVID, and this has been a landscape change, is that everybody now at home has done a rapid test at home and understands rapid testing. And as you said, before the pandemic, it was pregnancy and that was it. Right. I think now there's a much better understanding of the ability for people to test at home reliably when you have a good test solution available. And regulators and clinicians have accepted that people can cost effectively test at home. And that's a significant change in how public health thinks about testing and the ability to do that outside of a clinic. So we're now seeing, for example, this year in Australia, the Australian government funding HIV self-test purchasing directly and providing free tests to the community. That never happened before COVID.
Right.
So there's a fundamental shift now in public health thinking. It's much cheaper to buy a test and send it out in the mail than it is to try to get somebody into a clinic and run that test in a hospital. And I think COVID proved that. Our expansion of HIV services is proving that. I think syphilis will go the same way. And I think it will only be if you have an erroneous result or some sort of issue that you really need to go and see that specialist. I think for routine screening, it's going to increasingly be decentralized into the home, because not only is it more cost effective, but it's more convenient and it's more reliable because people can test more regularly at home. They don't have to book a day off and go see a clinic.
Right.
So that's changed. And I think that's where COVID has shifted the goalposts in terms of what diagnostics looks like over the next 10 years.
Certainly. For investors who don't know you, you've been a big wheel previously in another company. A lot of the success that ResMed has experienced in recent years has because of their masks. You were an important engineer in ResMed's mask division historically. Tell us what you did before and after ResMed.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say a big wheel, but appreciate that. I joined ResMed in 1999 when I first came to Australia. And I was with them for 5.5 years. I set up their new product introduction group and ran that for a while. That was the group that essentially took all of the R&D out of ResMed and put it into manufacturing and validated it. I then moved across to the patient interface group that did mass development, and I was a program manager there. And I ran the development of two of their fairly important products. It's turned out historically. One was the Activa mask system, and the other one was the Swift system. And they were very successful because they didn't necessarily clinically do anything different, but they did it in a way that was much more comfortable and therefore much preferred by the users.
Right.
And it was that understanding of how the user preference really drove market success in healthcare that I learned at ResMed. And I went to another company called Unilife, and there we developed, I was the COO there, and we developed a glass pre-filled drug delivery device that had
world's first retractable syringe, quite a
world's
breakthrough.
first retractable glass barrel syringe, and that was licensed to Sanofi Aventis for 47 US million back in 2008. And I left Unilife after that because the company relocated onto the NASDAQ, and I didn't want to relocate to Hershey, Pennsylvania. But what I learned through that journey was that the integration of functionality into a test that users prefer or into a device that users prefer is really important. The days of kind of the healthcare KOL dictating what everybody in the industry uses, I think those days are starting to diminish. The end user is much more vocal in how and when they want products delivered to them. And I think, outside of theater, increasingly consumer health is important in healthcare product selection and product success in a way that it wasn't, 15, 20 years ago. So I kind of got a sense of that early, and we looked at areas of healthcare where we felt that usability was really badly delivered. And we kept coming back to this diagnostics market that was driven by scientists, and it was all about the chemistry, and it was all about the lab development, and the end user was almost an afterthought, an inconvenience. And we felt there was a real opportunity to come at the product from a completely different perspective and say, the end user doesn't care about the chemistry. They don't understand it. They want it to be in a nice box. They want it to be easy to open the box. They want it to be easy to use the test and not second guess whether they've done it properly. They want the instructions to look fit for purpose. I mean, basic stuff, but not really how scientists in labs think when they're developing products. So we came at it from a much more consumer-focused solution. And it was that background through, ResMed and Unilife that I think gave me the confidence to really understand that if we could deliver user preference, we'd be successful. And, in all of our product developments, our number one marketing requirement is that we must have greater than 90% user preference over the incumbents. You're not competing with leading global companies if you don't have a significantly higher level of performance, and if you don't have a significantly higher level of user preference. And that's what we've really focused on delivering.
Right. As Merck used to say, if you look after the patients, the dollars will follow. And that's clearly the case at Atomo. You're gradually edging revenues up getting closer to profitability. What does the rest of calendar 2025 hold for Atomo?
Well, we've been very mindful over the last sort of 12 to 18 months of our need to get to break even as soon as possible, particularly in these capital, in these markets. So we have worked really hard to reduce down our OPEX. So our CAPEX is down. We have our R&D complete. We have our production validated. We can certainly double, triple, and quadruple our revenues without having to invest a lot more in CAPEX to scale that. So that's already kind of installed. On the OPEX side, we've pulled about 25% to 30% out of OPEX over the last 18 months. So we're running pretty lean. And that's a reflection of the fact that we want to make sure that modest revenue growth can get us through to profitability and cash flow generation. And that then allows us to grow more organically with free cash flow into all these other areas where we've got some opportunity.
Okay. John Kelly, thanks for joining Pitt Street Research.
Yeah, thanks for having me.